Okay, here we are at the end of a long day of filming a new training video with Michael Ellis. And before Michael comes to Leerburg, we always put the question out for customers to send us an email with some of the questions they would have. And we've got a list of them here, and I'll start with a question from Cindy. Not my Cindy, but a customer named Cindy. It says, "Hi, I'm training a small dog in competition obedience, and I'm having trouble transitioning to off-leash exercises. As soon as the leash comes off, her focus starts to waver and her heeling becomes less precise, sniffing and lagging when we start. Having a leash tab or a string drag line doesn't work well for me because the time it takes to bend over to reach it. I'm going back to marking and rewarding for brief moments of focus, like every few steps. But is there any other advice for a dog becoming leash-wise and or ring-wise for that matter?" Could you ask Michael for me, please?
Super good question. It's a really common problem, and from your description it sounds like the problem is twofold. One of the leash-wise issues is people are frequently relying on the leash to make behavior. So even when they still have a leash on the dog, instead of waiting to take the leash off until the dog is doing the behavior without any input and help from the leash, they pop the leash off the dog. The dog then was relying on the leash to make the behavior, and when the leash comes off, the dog doesn't do it, so you put the leash back on the dog, and it kind of reinforces that cycle. So there are a couple of really common problems that people make, or common mistakes that people make here. One is they're giving commands and leash help at the same time. Big problem, because the physical input from the leash is more relevant to the dog and will override the verbal cue. So lots of people are using the leash at the same time they're giving commands. So when the leash comes off, they don't have good control of the dog. The dog is not responding because the leash has become the signal for the behavior. The other problem sounds like a motivation problem. So when the leash comes off, you say your dog lags and sniffs. Those are strictly problems of motivation. So we need to develop, I would recommend developing higher value reward events. You need to find some way to motivate your dog more so that the rewards that you give them are more valuable, because lagging and sniffing are always a problem, avoidance problem due to a lack of motivation for the reward. So I would keep the leash on the dog, but try to work the dog in such a way that the dog is doing the behaviors without any input from the leash before you take it off again. And then the other thing is you need to really work hard on developing higher value in your reward event. So if you're using food, the dog needs to be hungrier. Maybe you need to use the food more dynamically instead of just handing the dog a piece of food. If you're using toys, then maybe some separate play sessions to build more motivation for the toys. I don't know what you're using to reward the dog, but it's a really common problem born of improper leash handling when you're doing it initially, and then sometimes lack of motivation, of course, in that situation.
Good one.